get going. Excellent. All right, so our first item up here on the slide is we're just going to do a brief overview of the topic that we'll be discussing today. So we're going to start off with a conversation about why we're talking about AI and assistive technology, particularly in the context of digital accessibility. From there, we're going to look at two categories of tools: general use AI products that are being used creatively to increase access and equity. And we'll also be looking at some assistive technology tools that are AI powered, built specifically for users with disabilities. Next, we'll look at where these tools, these tools are good and where they come up short. Then we will cover some of the common pain points associated with using these AI tools, from cost to cognitive load, privacy, and bias. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a discussion of the big picture. We'll talk about the opportunity AI brings to improve accessibility and autonomy and independence for users with disabilities. But also, we'll look at the ongoing need to build more inclusive AI tools and systems from the ground up. All right, on to our next slide here. Why are we having this conversation right now? Why are we talking about AI in assistive technology? I'm going to read through the items on the slide just so everyone gets a chance to hear what's there, and then we'll talk in more detail about it. So the first item here is that AI is now embedded across everyday digital tools and services that we all use. Tech companies are investing very heavily in building new AI tools and systems right now. Assistive and mainstream AI tools are evolving very rapidly. There's a virtual fire hose of new technologies. Inclusion must be prioritized now rather than retrofitted later with these tools. And we have a real opportunity here to get accessibility right from the ground up with this emerging tech. So, as I mentioned, AI is no longer a future concept. It's already here. It's built into the tools people use every day across smartphones, browsers, apps, and work tools. At the same time, tech companies are pouring resources into developing newer and more integrated AI systems. So that includes both the general use tools as well as assistive technologies, and they are changing rapidly. The decisions being made now with regards to accessibility of these products will shape how accessible they are for years to come. So we have a real moment here. We have the chance to build in accessibility from the beginning. If we don't, we'll be back to retrofitting, which we all know adds more cost, time, and burden to the end user. This is the time to get accessibility right in this area. And I'll hand it off to Gianna.
Yeah, so I'll chat a little bit about some of the mainstream AI tools that are supporting access. So these are the tools that you are most likely to be familiar with, and maybe you even use in your own life or work day. Tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Meta, AI, and Copilot can do a lot of kind of assistive tasks in addition to all the other random things they do for us nowadays. So they can do things like summarizing pages of dense text, helping fill out inaccessible forms, helping with writing or simplifying writing for you, creating outlines. Many of these tools can also describe images, screenshots, or videos. So if somebody was blind, they may upload an image to ChatGPT for kind of an interpretation of what that image looks like. That gives users more access to content like social media posts that do not have alt text, charts, or digital interfaces that can be used by them that may have otherwise been completely out of reach. There's also voice assistants. So voice assistants have made kind of speech to text much more just commonplace for users these days. Alexa and Siri, they add the hands-free access to everyday information on all of our smart devices, from our laptops to our phones to home assistants. This can be a major boost for independence for users who may have visual impairment or mobility issues. You can imagine using your smart device to control your lights, open doors, unlock things. This can be a huge asset for somebody who might have otherwise have mobility impairments and needed assistance to do all of those tasks. And while these tools aren't perfect, they are certainly already helping people. And every day, users with disabilities are finding new and creative ways to leverage these tools to make their lives easier. And the flexibility and kind of adaptability of them will continue to open doors in this area. You also have things like AI smart glasses, obviously, so that you can see how that could be a huge asset for somebody who doesn't have vision or has low vision and like to use that to try to interpret things. And we've done a webinar in the past on smart glasses and other technology of the sort, wearables previously, if you're interested in diving more into that. And then we can chat about some of the. This is just another slide that also links to this. I was didn't tab forward before, but and these are just some of the ways that they can use that. So this is what I had previously verbally described here. So reading and summarizing digital content, describing images, screenshots, and videos, completing tasks like writing and editing forms, filling out forms, and then hands-free navigation with voice commands and controls are all ways that these kind of mainstream tools that you may use can also be leveraged by people with disabilities as assistive technology of sorts. And then I'll pass it back to Heather to chat about assistive technology tools specifically for blind and low vision users, and then I'll chat about other specific other specific tools or other types of tools that also leverage AI and are specifically built to be assistive technology.
Awesome. Thanks, Gianna. So yeah, we're going to look at some assistive technology AI tools specifically for people who are blind or have low vision. I'm going to list out a few of them here, and then we'll talk in general terms about what they're capable of doing, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail on a few of the specific tools here that we mentioned. So the first one up is Be My Eyes Virtual Volunteer. The next is Ira alongside Project Astra. We have the Guide desktop app. And there are several AI features that are being built into screen readers, such as JAWS. In general terms, you'll see some overlap in terms of some of the capabilities here and some of the general use AI tools that Gianna just mentioned. Um, but generally, these interfaces are designed to be a little bit more accessible for people who are blind or visually impaired. So, in general terms, these tools can assist with getting real-time descriptions of images, screenshots, or specific screen elements that someone with low vision is not otherwise able to access. They can help individuals navigate and interact with inaccessible websites, apps, or software. They can help you access human support when automation is not enough. And they can also enable faster and more efficient workflows, even on poorly built websites. So let's talk a little bit more in detail here about, I mentioned Be My Eyes. So that is an iOS and Android app, and more recently, a Windows desktop app available. It includes a virtual volunteer feature that describes images or content on a screen using AI. It's helpful for identifying product labels, reading digital interfaces, or exploring things that a screen reader may not be able to reach. Um, Next up is the IRA platform. That's spelled AIRA. And IRA, including Project Astra, connects users to trained human agents who can provide real-time visual interpreting assistance with specific digital tasks, as well as things like travel, navigation, and reading inaccessible content. Through Project Astra, AI is being layered into the IRIS service to offer faster answers when a human isn't needed right away, or even in my experience, when for simpler tasks where a human may not be needed at all. And I'm not sure that there's an AI component, but it bears mentioning here related to IRA. They have also very recently launched real-time ASL interpreting service as well for customers who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind. And that is also a platform for connecting individuals with in real time live with ASL interpreters. So that's pretty cool. The next tool we mentioned on the first slide here is Guide. This is a subscription desktop that helps users interact with software websites that screen readers might struggle with. And the key here that sets this one apart, so we can identify visual information on a screen or through a screenshot and describe that to the user. But this guide also introduces the ability to perform some simple interactions, such as clicking buttons or entering text into a form field. And that's a real standout feature for that particular tool. And then lastly, we mentioned some screen readers beginning to incorporate AI features. I'm going to speak specifically about a couple that are found in the JAWS Windows-based screen reader applications. Um, and they're getting features that rely on AI. One of the JAWS features is called Picture Smart, and this is an embedded image description tool within JAWS. They have recently added a new page explorer AI-driven feature that helps with understanding complex page layouts, summarization, and identifying of highlight elements on the screen. And then also they now have the ability to let the user um, create custom labels on a website for elements on a website when things are not coded properly. So if you come across something that just says button or click here, once you investigate and you can figure out what that is, JAWS allows you to create a custom label for that. So if it's a site you visit frequently, you have a little better chance the next time of understanding what's going on. So these tools that we've mentioned definitely don't fix the problem of inaccessible design, but they are building a bridge and helping users learn how to work around it. So now that we've looked at where some of these products shine, we'll move on to our next slide and talk a little bit about some limitations and trade-offs that we need to consider when using these tools.
Yeah, and
First
before we
item
stay
on this
fully
list.
Before I jump fully into that, I want to mention just
Oh,
on
yes,
this kind of
sorry.
on other tools too that were not captured in this slide. Obviously, we're speaking directly. We're talked quite a bit about the tools that help low vision or blind users. But there's a wide range of assistive technology tools that are integrating AI now. So some other ones that come to mind that just I'd like to bring up and mention are kind of advanced speech interpretation software. So there has been some major developments and the integration of AI has significantly improved the software's ability to detect speech, even broken or jarbled speech that may be hard to interpret for previously. That technology, the speech to text technology, is much more advanced these days with AI in there. Some of them can even interpret eye movements, hand movements, and facial imagery and facial expressions so that they can get an even better picture of a person's attempted communication and assist with communication for people who may be nonverbal. And then there's AI and mobility aids as well. That's a really interesting area everywhere from smart canes to wheelchairs that incorporate LiDAR technology, canes that have haptic feedback, walkers. There are certainly a lot of companies that are trying to integrate AI on the mobility side of things as well. And then there's quite a few other pieces of technology popping up for people with cognitive disabilities, like AI note takers that just passively are interpreting the speech and conversations around you and kind of helping break that down so that it is more digestible for people who may have auditory processing challenges or memory deficits. And so all of those are other ways that AI is beginning to be leveraged in the assistive technology space, specifically designed and sold to people with disabilities. And so now that I've covered and mentioned that, we're going to jump into some of the limitations of these technologies because they apply really broadly across various types of disabilities and types of technology here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that,
Thank you
Gianna.
for letting me jump
Apologies
in,
for
Heather.
jumping ahead there on you.
No worries.
We definitely didn't want to miss out on that. So I'll pick back up here talking a little bit about some of the concerns and drawbacks. The first of which is something called the disability tax. We'll talk a little more specifically about that. There can be a significant cognitive load and learning curve associated with these technologies. Comes as a surprise to no one. Privacy and security is a concern. In addition to safety and reliability of the information that's output by some of these AI tools. And finally, disability bias that can show up in some of these AI tools. So as promising as these tools are, they're not perfect. And the challenges that they bring up often fall heaviest on the people who are relying on them to improve independence and accessibility. So we mentioned the disability tax. This means that disabled users often pay more for equitable access. So things like specialized devices, subscriptions, or services that are all basically used just to fill in accessibility gaps, and they can be expensive. We mentioned the cognitive load, or some people call it mental labor, associated with learning how to use these tools and also just keeping up with the rapid pace of growth and what's changing. Tools can often take time, effort, and even a bit of troubleshooting just to get them working reliably and getting reliable results. And when you pair that with or layer that on top of incorporating assistive technology and inaccessible content, it can add up to being quite a resource drain for some folks. Privacy and security, we mentioned. This becomes particularly critical when you're relying on it for accessibility of things like personal messages, financial or legal documents, or private health information, right? You want to know where you're sharing that information to, and what's being done with it. We mentioned safety and reliability. So these are also concerns. AI tools can get things wrong,
Hmm.
and they frequently do at this point. And depending on the circumstances, the consequences can be serious. If you imagine perhaps like misreading a label on a prescription bottle or something like that. Um, so we need to be really careful in that area as well. And then finally, disability bias in AI systems. And it shows up in ways that would be easy to miss unless you are someone affected. And this happens a lot because most AI models these days are not trained on disability inclusive or equitable data. And so that is going to lead to things like inaccurate image descriptions, ableist assumptions, or really even a complete misfire when trying to interpret assistive technology or something like non-standard speech patterns.
Yeah.
So these are absolutely not reasons to stop progress for people not to use these tools, but they are an important reminder and a caution to be aware that a lot of the burden related to using these tools for accessibilities, it still lies too heavily on the user at this point. So it just cannot be an accessibility solution in and of itself.
Yep.
And Gianna's going to wrap us up here with the big picture.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is, I think the limitations and trade-offs are super important here. Obviously, it's very cool that there is all this emerging technology, but it wouldn't be reasonable to expect it to be universally adopted, especially by people with disabilities across the board consistently. Everybody is an individual, and everybody has different access and resources to these types of new technology and, capacity to try on and test new tools. If you think about mobility aids as one example with really clear like limitations on upgrades, people can't get new wheelchairs or new durable medical equipment, essentially. That might include assistive technology devices, usually for like 5 years. You have to, or unless you prove a high burden of it not working and supporting your life, which unfortunately the insurance companies are not incentivized to get people on the latest technology, the most expensive option out there. And so in general, they are not helping promote people to the latest and greatest that's there. And then you also have to think about the additional kind of failure points that are introduced as technology becomes more advanced and the increased costs of fixing that technology too. And then I'm going to jump on empowering equity and AI. So we kind of covered a lot of this already, but we know that this can open new doors for sure. But it also shifts that burden to those users in a way that you have to be really conscious of, and you can't expect that to be the solution. Asking your users to bring new technology does not take it over there. And then progress is promising, but equality takes intention. So, you have to also be ready to provide these accommodations. Is there anything else you want to add on this slide, Heather? Sorry.
So
Let's see. Awesome. So yes, as the central point is that while it can support access and it is super exciting in some of these fronts, it is not a fallback plan when inclusive design is missing. The foundation still has to be accessible by default. You need to be prepared to support all iterations of technology, including older versions that may not be as advanced or integrate AI. And that's why, when we're thinking about the web specifically, adhering to WCAG and those web content accessibility guidelines is absolutely critical and will remain critical critical moving forward, because ultimately, even if the technology exists, not all users will have access to it. Not all users will be able to afford it. Not all users will be able to fully leverage it. And it is still, very important that you are producing a barrier-free experience for everybody, no matter how they show up and what technology they have access to. Let's see. And then this is our typical wrap-up slide, how accessible web can help. So obviously, it's really important you're doing this right on your end. And as we are always here to support you on that front. So if you come to our webinars regularly, you probably know that Accessible Web offers a comprehensive range of accessibility software and services. So everything from web accessibility software, our platform Ramp, which is a fantastic starting point for assessing websites and applications, with automated tools, and then moving into manual auditing, which is also critical. We offer accessibility audits in-house, as well as VPATs and other reporting. And then finally, we offer consulting and training. So we are an available resource to kind of augment your internal team if you need to bring on the accessibility expertise externally. And we have a great way to integrate voices of people with disabilities as well. As much and as often in your process as you are designing and thinking about your long-term accessibility strategy. Let's see. All right, so we'll
Awesome.
open it up for questions.